What's going on, everybody? Brandon with Hog City Cycle Works. As you can see, I've got a 24 Street Glide right here. If you watched one of my last videos where I did a rider review on a Lowrider ST, that was my personal bike. No longer have it. Now I have this Street Glide. There should be a video up about my first impressions on the bike. If not, it'll be up soon. But this video, we're going to go into installing some slip-on mufflers. I'm going to go ahead and preface this video with saying, as this bike progresses, it's going to be more of a performance build bike. It's not necessarily going to be just a hell yeah brother type stuff. It's actually going to be a very rider friendly, crush a lot of miles, bang some corners type build. But these slip-ons I had from a previous bike, so I'm going to put them on this one temporarily, just that way I can get some throttle feedback. The group I ride with, we use a lot of throttle to communicate back and forth. So I'm just putting these on for temporary. So let's go into how to install some slip-ons on a 24 Street Glide, which would also be the same thing for a 24 Road Glide. But to start, we're going to pull bags off. If you don't know how to pull the bags off, then this probably isn't the video for you. You should probably take this to a dealership. So I'm going to start with pulling the bags off. Once I get those off, then I'll bring it back to you. All right. Now, I do have this motorcycle on a lift. You do not have to have it. I've installed slip-ons before while the motorcycle is on its kickstand, so you do not have to have it on a lift, but I have a lift, so I'm going to use it. To do this install, you really only need 3 tools. Use power tools. You don't have to have power tools. You can have basic hand tools. I would suggest using a ratchet over a wrench just because it'll make your life a whole lot easier, but if all you have is wrenches, then that's all you need. Now, this is a 24. A lot of newer Harleys have started switching away from standard sockets to use a metric. This bike's probably going to have a little bit of both. So you're going to use a 13. That's going to be for the mounting brackets right here. You're going to be using a 14 for the left side of the bike. There is a pinch clamp right here, and then you're going to be using a 15 for this pinch clamp on the other side. Whenever I talk about the pinch clamp, right there is the pinch clamp. All that does is just pinch the muffler to the exhaust system, to the header assembly. So, pinch clamp right here. You have 2 bolts for your mount. Now, this is going to be identical. Doesn't matter which side you do it on. So right now we're starting on the left side. You don't have to start on the left side. You can start on the right side. Whatever's up to you. You just need to pull this pinch clamp. You don't even have to take it off all the way. You just need to loosen it enough to where it wiggles on the exhaust. Then you want to unbolt this and you just slide your whole exhaust out. Let's move right here. So these are the ones that we're putting on. These are the Cobra Race Series slip-ons. These were originally chrome. Like I said, I had it on another bike. I had my buddy Luther powder coat these for me. So the powder coat black ones that you can get might be slightly different. As far as a different shape goes, but either way, we're going to be putting those on. But I want to do a sound test for you guys so that way you can kind of hear the difference between stock and then you can hear the Cobra Race Series if you want to know what that one sounds like. So what a stock sewing machine sounds like on a 24 Street Glide with the 117 on it. Now, let's get into the replacement of the exhaust.
Shut up and sit down.
Now, this was literally, I'm going to say, less than a minute to get this side off. Let's put it back on now. Now, there is one thing that I will suggest that you do. Take a little bit of anti-seize, not a bunch, and just put a tiny bit of anti-seize right here in this lip. inside the lip. What that's going to do is, first off, it's going to assist you with it sliding back onto the stock exhaust. But then also later on, if you ever want to take these back off, it's going to help out with this seizing to the exhaust, which is a common issue where rust builds up. So just a little dab inside of here. I will suggest whenever you do this though, to use some gloves or something like that. This stuff is like the herpes of the automotive or repair world, because once it gets on one thing, it gets on all of it. So just take a little dab on your finger and just rub it in there. Or if you have a little brush, put on a brush or something along those lines. So as you can see, I've got just a little bit on my fingertip. Just putting a tad in there. To be honest with you, that little tiny bit that I had in my fingertip was probably a little too much, but we'll see what happens. Something that you might run into whenever you go to do this job. This is just a heat shielding. You might have to loosen the heat shielding and just do a slight adjustment to fit the exhaust. These are aftermarket, they're not factory, so everything is subject to slightly change. If you have to adjust yours, it's just an 8mm socket, or you can use a flathead. Now, when you start going back together with this, I recommend putting a little bit of Loctite, not a ton, on your fasteners, just so that way they don't loosen up. When you go to tighten the bolts back up, you can go ahead and tighten these down as tight as possible, because this right here will actually slide in and out. But I do not suggest tightening any of this yet until you do the other side. So that way, if you need to push the muffler in or out, so that way you can line it up evenly with the other one, then you can. Like I said earlier, pretty much the exact same thing. We're going to be taking these two bolts off. Then you have your pinch clamp, which is right here. And then if we have to adjust this, there are adjustment clamps throughout this. That way we can pivot the heat shielding around as we need. One thing that you might run into when doing your exhaust, and it's doing it on this one right here, is this pinch clamp. So this is what the clamp looks like. And after you loosen this bolt, this should spread out some and give you some room. This one right now didn't loosen up at all. It's staying tight on the exhaust. It's a common issue. So if you need to, just put your thumb on the bolt and push on it some. And if it still doesn't want to release properly, you can actually put a screwdriver in there or a small pry tool and just pry it a little bit and it pops. Like I said earlier, the reason I put anti-seize on the exhaust is for this exact reason. I don't know if you can tell, but in the exhaust is actually starting to rust up just a tad. And mind you, this is a brand new bike. It has 200 miles on it. It's a common issue. So if you just put a tad bit of anti-seize on there, it'll make your life easier in the long run. Now that I got it in place on the catalytic converter, you can stick your bar back in. Now, next thing we want to look at is our side-to-side plane, seeing if this one is further back or forwards than that one. Everything is loose fit up. These are already tight on both sides. Now it's going to go back to tightening our pinch clamps for the exhaust on both sides. And then on that side over there, I just need to tighten the heat shielding that I loosened up. Kind of a personal preference. It's not a requirement. Try and make it look as good as possible. You can position clamps to where they are angled differently, so that way they give it a different look. All personal preference. I'm just going to try and angle these up where you really can't see much of them at all.
Romantic, isn't it?
All right, now we got everything adjusted. Let's do this sound comparison. Let's see what it sounds like now. Now, one thing that you do want to do whenever you're doing this job, after you get everything put back together, you do want to just put your hands around the exhaust where it slides onto the manifold. Don't grab a hold of it because it will start getting hot. You're just checking for airflow. They shouldn't have anything. If you feel any air pressing out on your hands, then you've got an air leak and you'll have to readjust your exhaust. Well, everybody, that's it. Quick, simple install of putting slip-on mufflers onto a 24 Street Glide. Like I said, it's very simple. I recorded this video in full length. That includes me talking to you some, grabbing tools and messing around, and it's maybe 10 minutes total, 10 to 15 minutes. And that includes taking bags off. Very simple job. You can do it in your driveway. If you can't, feel free to reach out to us at Hog City Cycle Works in Lexington, North Carolina. We'd be glad to assist you with installing this or doing any type of bike builds that you guys would want. Thank you guys. Catch me on the next one. And like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff for YouTube algorithms. And we'll catch you on the next time. See you later.